Hey, everybody, welcome back. For our live streaming audience, this session is all about sustainability. Thanks for tuning in from home. You made a poor choice, though, because the real fun is where we are today, which is in Las Vegas at the Car Wash Show 2023. Thank you to our live studio audience. I know that you all are here mostly for the sustainability conversation, but also for Plinko, right? I mean, everybody's here for Plinko. So we will play some of that a little bit later here. We've got some grand prize opportunities for that. But this is all about sustainability. And I think this is a really interesting conversation because for a long time in the car wash industry, this was not a conversation that we were having, right? Like this is something that has evolved over the years. And so to talk about this in a meaningful way for us today, we've got Ash Del Rahim from Bliss Car Wash. We've got Jeff Jervis from Mint Eco. And down in the end is Bert Kelly from NCS. Welcome to the show, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so before we get too far into this, I want to just kind of level set for folks, and we'll start down in the end, Bert, with you. Just give us like the elevator pitch. Your name, we know that, but we need to know what you do.
Yeah.
And why does sustainability matter?
I'm from NCS. I'm the senior marketing manager with them. And I've been in the car wash space since, actually not that long, since about 2019. So formerly worked for Suds Creative, so if you guys are familiar with them. And, I think sustainability is important. This industry is going to continue to grow. We all know that. We've seen it. And we all have an impact on the environment. So if there's a way that we can have a positive effect, right, and still see this business in this industry continue to grow, I mean, that's what everyone's goal is, right? So.
Yep, perfect. And Jeff, quick Mint Eco version, because we get your full story later, too.
So Jeff Jervis, one of the co-founders, along with Vic Monteleone, who's out there in the back, of Mint Eco Car Wash. And I will tell you that the reason that we're successful with this is that you can be a tree hugger and a capitalist.
You can be both those things.
You absolutely can, right? I mean, if you want me to expand on that? Okay.
Yeah,
so I'll expand, which is, listen, we take an environmental approach when we founded the company because we wanted to put our heads down on the pillow at night softly, right? I mean, and the industry doesn't have the best track record, right? I mean, raise your hand if you've had hydrofluoric acid. Don't raise your hand.
Yeah, don't do that.
Right?
No, we don't need.
But there's a lot of bad behavior out there. But when we founded this company, we wanted to make sure we did it right. But then there's a flip side to it, which is that if you look at consumer behavior, right, there's more and more about the social responsibility and the environmental footprint of the companies that consumers are doing business with, which is helping them make the decision to buy your product or not. And so there's a win-win here, right? That traditional, if it's good for the environment, it's bad for business, and vice versa. We don't believe in that. And that's where you have to start. Otherwise, you're fooling yourself, right? We wouldn't have put eco in the name if it didn't mean something to us.
Yeah, that's a whole brand alignment challenge in itself.
Yeah.
But that's a different.
By the way, the consumer is so skeptical. It's like, that's bullshit.
Yeah. Come on, it's a PG program.
Right?
No,
just
kidding, guys. Ash, how about you? Tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, Ash Del Rahim from Bliss Car Wash, based in SoCal. Being responsibility with the environment it's really important to us at Bliss. We consider ourselves water warriors, and it's really important for all businesses, especially in California, where we have a huge drought problem, to be mindful of water usage and taking that first step and, not just wasting it. And it's as simple as that. Unfortunately, a lot of business owners these days don't think about, the consequences of the future, being a millennial, and, we had everyone in front of us wasting a lot of things, and it's time for us to be responsible. And it's our job to do so, especially as business owners in California.
Let's come back down to Bert. So I want to know, because we got kind of the mission statements here from Mint and Bliss, what's NCS's kind of perspective on this? And as a major player in the equipment side in the car wash industry, what are you thinking in terms of sustainability? And how can you, frankly, to Jeff's point, how can you be both a tree hugger and a capitalist?
That's a good question. Our view, obviously, on sustainability is, we want to produce products, right, that will help, operators, run their washes more efficiently, right, which will also help them reduce their energy consumption, right, which is I don't know, I guess which will help with their sustainability, right, within the environment. So, we're always looking for new and innovative ways, right, to help everybody get on board, I guess. So,
If I can interject, when we set out on the mission to be environmentally sensitive, minimize our footprint, we went to the chief chemist at NCS, and we had a long dialogue with them about how to craft our chemistry. And so you guys really helped us do this from the start. And I will tell you that I was, whether it was running through SDS sheets or whatever it was on the chemistry side, these guys have been great partner in helping us realize our vision as well.
So chemistry is one thing, right? So like, Bert, maybe talk a little bit about that. Like, what are you all doing, and how is it going kind of through all the lines, right, from a sustainability?
well, yeah. So, like, we recently worked with Hanover Research to kind of get a better idea and an understanding of what kind of things are being talked about in the industry, right, and where we think the industry is heading in regards to sustainability, right. So, I think, to probably no one's surprise, like, water dominates the conversation, right. So, as the industry has continued to grow over the years, so has our reclaim processes, right? So, today reclaimed water is generally somewhere between 1.9 to 4.9 gallons, for every gallon of fresh water that's being used. So, that's been great for operators, right? They've helped them save a lot of money on water and sewer costs, but it's also been great for the environment because, it reduces water waste. So, another big topic of discussion that we kind of found out from our research was, the use of environmentally friendly chemicals, like you said. So, there's lots of operators out there that are promoting their use of biodegradable, right, chemicals that don't have other ingredients, harsh ingredients like, phosphates or kerosene or silicone, right? So, it's a very strong marketing message for them, right? And as consumers, and as that message grows, and consumers start to see that message, everywhere, it creates a lot of demand. Like, they want to be part of, Jeff's wash because they know he's socially responsible, right? So, so that was another, big topic that we that we found out from our research. And then I think the last main topic that we saw a lot of conversation about was about energy consumption. So, on the equipment side, there's a discussion about using variable frequency drivers, so VFDs, right? And these controllers help regulate the frequency and voltage of a lot of the motors that are going to be running most of the equipment within your wash. So, when you can regulate those things, obviously it's going to reduce your consumption of energy, but also save the operators costs. So, LED lights was also another big topic. So. They know there's going to be more of an upfront cost, right, for those, but operators are opting into using those because they know in the long run that they're going to save, right? So, LED lights, can save you anywhere between 50 to 80%, right, on your energy consumption, but also, they're less maintenance, right? So, less time you're spending in there changing out lights. So, and then I think the last part of that, as far as energy consumption, is there's been some talk about solar panels, and I don't know if anybody out there is using solar panels at the moment, but car wash sites are really ideal most of them are really ideal for solar panels, right? So you have large roofs, or you just have large plots that either give you ample room to do ground mounts or to do roof mounts. So the average house in America, right? They consume 10,000 to 11,000 kilowatt hours a year, right? A wash can consume that in a month, right? So if you're looking for ways, to reduce those costs, for you, those are some things that you can do. Like I said, look into solar, look into LED, look into VFDs. So,
Ash, there was something that Bert touched on that triggered something for you.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think it's when we were coming up with the Bliss concept, it was really important for us to look at two elements in California that is a huge problem. One being water and another being real estate. So how did we, take that and develop Bliss is we reduced our footprint tremendously. So, not going with the standard 200, 150 foot tunnels, but reducing that to a size that still leads to a car that is clean, dry, and protected. to give extra value to our customers while reducing our footprint. And the highlight of it, and Jeff and I were talking about this earlier, was we're only using 50 gallons of total water, and of the 50 gallons that we're using, 24 is fresh. And we know that for a fact because if we were using smart meters that we can lively track every gallon of water that's being outputted on every car at any given moment. So just reducing that footprint is, lights out and helps with the real estate component too.
Well, sure, yeah. It's easier to find a lot to put a 65 to 85 foot piece of tunnel equipment on as opposed to a 150 or 200 foot, right? Mm-hmm. Well, and talk to me a little bit about from Bliss's perspective, right? How do you do these things and maintain quality of product? Like as you're looking at this and evaluating, how are you making eco-friendly decisions and still putting out a good car?
I think it comes a lot with, as they mentioned before, is our partnerships with our different vendors and manufacturers. From our equipment being energy efficient to, our reps at NCS taking care of us and, making sure that we're having the highest quality products to be placed out on your cars. And, we don't call them chemicals, they're products. Because chemicals, that's a way of the past.
Yeah, you can just say soap, right? It's just soap. So it's such a friendlier term, which is funny because when you're talking inside baseball, right? It's like, oh, the chemistry in the wash. Well, the consumer doesn't really want to hear that. They don't want to know that there's chemistry going on their cars. But Jeff, I want to go off of this chemistry piece because for you all, that was kind of like where it started. What was it then? How did you take what you learned in that process and start to apply that throughout the rest of Mint Eco?
Oh, we've gone down a deep, dark hole.
A little bit of a rabbit hole, yeah.
So, in Florida, first off, 50 gallons, that's pretty impressive. We're not there. We don't have the same water issue that they do in California, but our issue is more where runoff goes.
Oh.
Right, so for us, chemistry was a more sort of glaring issue for us. Obviously, it helps with the reclaim and not having any runoff, but that's where it started. And then, it goes further, right? We've gotten to a point, it's LED. Okay, how about getting rid of paper towels? Okay, in the bathroom, so now we have hand dryers. How about low flow toilets? Okay, well, there are very few commercial grade. All right, we'll just use a high grade residential toilet in our bath. Our last one was bamboo toilet paper, right? So it keeps going. And then obviously, rainwater recapture. So as we're building our sites, even if we're setting ourselves up for rainwater recapture. Solar. Solar is a tough one, right? Don't forget you have the canopy space as well. So you've got a lot. Bert's absolutely right. We are set up for solar. It's just tough. It's like buying a Tesla, right? You want to lease it, right? So we'll try it out. We'll probably try it out on our next wash. But, I'm not necessarily sure it's going to be a great economic decision, but I think it'll be a good environmental decision. And again, not to pick on Bert here, he keeps tying it back to cost. At some point, you're going to kill yourself if you keep going through and everything having to have the right cost-benefit analysis. At some element, if you mean it, it's got to be something that's personal to you, and it's got to be something to your brand, and you've got to be willing to spend money on it as well. It is harder to clean a car with the chemistry that we use. It is harder to clean a car in a 65-foot tunnel. It just is. It will be harder. And how do you make it up? In some degree, labor, some degree a little extra prepping, a little extra exterior finish, some degree letting your customer know that maybe your tires aren't as shiny because we refuse to use some of the more, invasive, or what the right word is, some of the, more offensive tire shine products, right?
Well, the other piece of it too is I think that sustainability is becoming easier is maybe the wrong word, but you can produce a better car because of what's going on in the subscription space because people are washing more frequently. So you're not having to attack those bugs quite as much because your monthly members are coming through and they're starting with a clean car. So for them, it's like, oh, yeah, this is great. This works great. And I get the benefit of it being sustainable and good for the planet and all of the good vibes that go with me taking my wash through and being really excited about the experience I just had. I think that's a huge piece of it that I think is why this conversation comes up from a consumer perspective. Bert, like you were saying, the research. ICA is seeing the same thing in our consumer study, It used to be when we would do that study, we would test and see like, well, why do people want to wash their cars, and like, how do they choose? And environmental like responsibility was not even like, I don't think it was top 10. It was maybe like 10 in terms of a factor that drove their decision. And now we've seen that creeping up.
Starts to climb. Yeah, for sure.
What else in that research for you do you think was maybe surprising? And the stuff, and when you all went out and you were looking at the things you could do with variable frequency drives, or from a messaging perspective, what was maybe kind of something that caught you off guard?
I don't know that anything caught me off guard. Like you said, you do see that messaging around, especially around products or chemicals. That is a very popular thing that people are starting to do. And what's great about it is it's consumers are helping to drive that, right? It's you want to be more environmentally friendly, like you want to be able to use those products that are more sustainable. But sometimes it's a hard push, right, in an industry to get everybody moving forward in the same direction. But when your consumers and your customers get involved, it's a great benefit. It's a great help to progress that forward. So
yeah, it makes it a little bit easier with the customer because I want eco-friendly.
Yeah.
Ash, for you in kind of in this messaging space, I want to stay there for just a minute. When you all are talking about Bliss Car Wash and your Water Warrior kind of approach, does that show up in your consumer messaging?
Absolutely. It's, not only is it brought up in our training to all of our GSAs and team members on site, but when we're pushing the Bliss brand out, it is vital to express us, all our contributions and all of our, quote unquote, sacrifices of conserving water. And it's absolutely essential to the entire Bliss brand from top to bottom.
I want to stay on the messaging stuff. I want to know, Jeff, because you all, obviously, it's in your name. You've really leaned into this. Is this everywhere for you from a messaging perspective?
Oh, sure. It goes beyond anything we do in the wash as well, right? So we've adopted a park for every wash that we open. We draw a 3-mile circle around the wash. We identify either with, local leadership or through our own. We identify a park, and we try and clean it once a month. But we'll do it both with corporate staff, and then we'll bring some of the wash staff as well, and make sure that they understand what we're doing here, right? It's a community outreach and an environmental messaging thing. And again, there's no ROI on that you can quantify. But I will tell you that, not to get too far off topic, but our relationship with our communities is differentiated as well because of just this attitude with respect to responsibility, whether it be environmental, community, or otherwise.
Yeah, I think that's a super important piece of it, is just seeing how you show up in that space, right? And it's one thing if you're using, lots of single-use plastics and dumping your effluent in a bad spot. That's not going to be good for the community. They're not going to like you very much. Let's shift gears, though. We could go down a rabbit hole with that. Let's shift into, I want to talk about as you grow. How do you scale this thing, right? Because we've talked a little bit about the economics of it. It is more expensive. It is harder to do some of these things. Jeff, you guys are growing at a pretty good clip. How are you scaling with this approach?
Ooh, it's not the most efficient scaling when it comes to things like adopting a park. So that's linear growth in the number of parks we're adopting, which we love. But with respect to the chemistry, with respect to the automation, with respect to what's going on in the tunnel, it's kind of easy to scale, right? Vic and the team have really, they dove into this issue, and now it's just a matter of our relationship, our conversations with with NCS and with our other equipment and chemical relationships. It's now part of the conversation, so it's scaling with us as we go. And so, we know that our contractors understand what we're doing, and it's not necessarily something we have to do once we make the decision, sort of set it in motion. So it's easy to scale. The issue is, the hard thing is to make the decision at the base level.
Yeah.
Then I think it's easy to scale.
Yeah, you don't want to scale garbage, right?
No, as a matter of fact, candidly, you're making everything more efficient once you've made these decisions. If you know that you're going to use a reclaim system, if you know you're going to be using these types of chemistry, you can start to, pre-identify the right equipment for that type of chemistry program as well. So, but again, this is where Vic makes all the money.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Ash, how about you? Same kind of question, because you all are on a pretty good growth path too. as you're kind of building this out, where does this scale? How does this scale for you?
I think, Jeff brings up a great point. It started with our founder, David, and, he set the bar, he set the tone very early on of how we want it to go with Bliss, and really engraving the water warrior message across the entire company, again, from bottom to top. So it makes everything else easy. The growth is easy. It's just, how you start, like Jeff said.
Yeah, that's great advice. Let's talk then, how do you maintain culture of this thing, right? So how do you make sure that you keep your teams on kind of brand when it comes to this sustainability message and the eco? And let's start with you, Ash.
Right. And again, I feel like, I keep going back to this point where, it really did start with our founder, David, and because what he did is he engraved it in all of us. So when any of the guys from the office or team is out in the sites in the field, from day one of our grand opening, we invite our entire, this entire city council, our entire office, everybody that helped us build, but also our foundation that we work with, which is Wellspring Hope. So every car wash that we open, we actually build a freshwater well in Nigeria, Africa, to help with that. And I think seeing that at the grand opening really, and having Barbara, the founder, speak about that at our grand openings is really touches the hearts of our team members. And, they immediately get wrapped up in the culture and can't imagine going anywhere else after that.
Yeah. How about you, Jeff? Same kind of question.
How did you save the dig a well in Africa thing until this point? I mean, I would have led with that one. That's pretty good.
You can't give up all your cards.
I think exactly what Ash was saying. I'll just say it differently. It's clarity, clarity, clarity. Organizationally, as a leader, you have to provide clarity to every element of your, to every layer of your organization as to what you're about. And if you provide that clarity with respect to your environmental message, so your employee of the month, tie it back to something cultural, tie it back to something foundational. It's not highest degree of sales or this, that, the other. It's about clarity. And I mean, that's the lesson that's been the hardest to learn in my career, is how to manage. But I think the lesson is, if you're crystal clear with your staff, eventually it comes home to roost. And it's consistency, over communicating that message over and over and over again. And it starts to resonate. And then they start hearing it from other people in the organization. And then they start hearing it from each other, and then they start hearing it from the customers, and that's when it really takes root.
Yeah, it's kind of like, sometimes it's not effective when they're hearing it from the same person over and over again. It's like, when I tell my son, how to swing a baseball bat, he won't do what I tell him to do, but when the other guy tells him, he sure does change up his swing. It's so frustrating. Sorry, we can unpack that therapy session another day. Bert, I want to talk a little bit about, for NCS, it's a big company. Obviously, this is a big kind of a change and a shift in strategy, right? Like this is a big thing. How are you thinking about this? How is this working for you from a cultural kind of company strategy perspective, this whole sustainability?
Yeah, there's lots of, I shouldn't say lots, but there's some programs and some certifications, right, that are out there that are provided by some, international and regional car wash associations. And they just tend to focus on water, their water use. So at NCS, we recently just launched our carbon footprint calculator. So what this calculator does is it allows you to see, by making a simple change to like ultra concentrated chemistry, how it can help reduce your carbon footprint, right? So, ultra concentrated chemicals are smaller packaging, they're lighter. You can store a lot of it, on location rather than, big barrels, what people are using in the past, right? So, doing these things, it just means less vehicles on the road, right? Less shipment. So again, reducing your carbon footprint.
How does he not lead with carbon
I know.
calculation? I don't understand this. I mean,
He wants us to stay for the whole show.
I mean, I'm done. I've spent everything, right? So I'm now waiting for what they come up with next.
Well, I mean, if you're impressed with that, we are actually continuing to work with Hanover Research, right? So our goal is to create a more comprehensive, holistic tool, right?
Yeah.
One that not only looks at chemical volumes, but also looks at water and energy consumption as well. So we want to be able to give operators a holistic view of their, environmental impact, right? So, and then be able to use that tool to make smarter operational, environmental decisions, right? Or things that they can do to run their washes, more efficiently and better for the environment. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Man, I really love this change of focus. I mean, I don't know, 15 years ago when I started in this industry, I don't know that I would have ever foreseen us having this conversation at this point, or ever, frankly, with the way the industry was. Which makes me think, well, what's coming next, right? So what do we need to be watching next? So I'm going to give you all just a second, and I'm going to babble so you can think about this in terms of, from sustainability's perspective, what do we need to be thinking about or looking at in the future, right? So there's obviously what we're doing right now. What about for the future? And I'm going to come to, this is the dangerous game, Fred. Ash, you're up.
So I think, the most important thing is utilizing technology. And we have all these elements of technology that can help us succeed in being more environmentally friendly and sustainable. And people aren't just using it. Sure, it's an extra cost, but I mean, you guys have to think about the future generations that are coming out and being and living and, and it goes back to the same thing. You can be a tree hugger and you can be a capitalist. You can spin it how you want. And you can use that for your marketing as well, to utilize all these great technology that is out there and that, we have been using. So, and I'm more than happy to get you in contact with all the same people that we're using just so that we can make the first step. And, sure, we can be competitors, but, this is a community that needs to prosper together and not just individually.
Yeah, it sure is a big ship, but if we're all kind of turning together, that's an easier right turn to make. Jeff, how about you?
Well, I think that energy consumption is going to be a big one, and our ability to continue to get more efficient with respect to the machinery that we're using, and then also our ability to generate some level of our energy, whether it be solar or otherwise, on our sites. I think that's probably for us the next level. I would also say, we avoid something in this industry, which is noise is a pollutant. Anybody here stood by their dryers lately?
What?
Yeah, right? Right? I'd love to see, when I'm looking over at the silent dryers that NCS markets, I'd love to see that become a cost-effective element as well in the arsenal for all of us. I don't know if you guys have been over there. You can have a conversation underneath those dryers, whereas, let's be honest here, right? I mean, anybody want to live next to their site? That's a zero, right? I mean, that's another element of our being environmentally conscious.
Well,
and one more thing I would say, I think you hit on something, everybody up here has hit on something, which is we have to start to share this knowledge. This industry has had, if you look back at the generations before, everybody was so secretive. They all thought that they had McDonald's secret sauce on everything we're doing, which is, hey, we're going to use a blower to dry the car. And it's like, wait a minute, everybody does that, right? So they all think it's so secret. We have to start sharing. So, what we've done, and, our marketing director has led the effort here, Shannon Kessel, is that we have posted, have we posted it yet? Next week, we're posting our first voluntary environmental audit of our site. Oh. Now, actually, if I had known about what you guys were doing, we could have done this in conjunction. Yep. And we're going to put it up there. To your point, Ash, everybody can see how, from a chemistry standpoint, and from what we look at from our environmental footprint, you can all go to our website, you can all see what we can do, and we can share, and we can make the world better together. Right?
Love that.
That was my
your
African well and carbon footprint calculator.
That's your big moment. You saved it for almost the end. Bert, I want to know, what are you all working on, right? What are you working on?
I don't know that we're working on anything outside of what we already talked about, today. But what I will say is, the direction that we need to head, or something that I guess that we can do better, is to have more NCS, to have more conversations like this, right? And to be a thought leader, for sustainability, because we're always going to be looking for ways to produce new products, right? That are going to be more sustainable, but unless we can get the message out and have more conversations like this and get everybody to want to move forward and adapt to that, then it doesn't really matter so much if we're producing all these great products, because it's we can't make the change. We're one company. It takes everybody that's out there that's in the grind every day doing these things to want to be part of this. So again, yeah, it's just us getting the message out and being a thought leader.
I love that, Bert. Well, I mean, it's a very important message that NCS, as a company and one of the largest and leading companies in the industry, is taking a stand here, right? And kind of putting a stake in the ground and saying, this is what we're standing for and this is what we're doing. So kudos to you all.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have one more question. I see my clock is at 0. I'm still going to ask my question. Sorry, guys. What's one thing that we can do today to be better tomorrow? So that's my last question I like to ask. And then I have to ramble for a minute because I don't know if I told you guys I was going to ask this question. That's enough time. Let's go to the middle. Jeff, one thing I can do today to be better tomorrow.
I think you can, as far as something we can do or some advice I have for others.
Advice for others.
I think advice for others is sit down with your business partners, or if you're a sole proprietor, go look in the mirror and ask yourself what kind of business you want to have. Ask yourself if you really want to make this commitment. And I think most of us will answer yes. And that's, it's the old first thing I have to do is admit I have a problem, right? And that's part of it. I think we have to admit that that this is important to do. It's an important conversation to have, and that we're willing to have it. And then we figure out, I think what you're going to learn is that what you're going to come across as sacrifices are not really going to be sacrifices. They're going to have, whether it be, an altruistic element to them or a real marketing and consumer, a benefit for your top line. I think we probably I could never give you the real ROI on what we've done, but I would wager any amount of money that our environmental posture has earned us a lot more money than it's cost us.
Yeah, I love that. Bert, how about you? One
Yeah,
thing.
I would say research. For us, I mean, we do a lot of research. So, if you're out there and you have questions, talk to your reps, reach out to us. I mean, we're full of information. There's no dumb questions. If you're trying to be more sustainable, talk to people who know about it. So.
Awesome. Ash, take us home.
I think going back to the community aspect of it, we can come to the show in Vegas and Nashville, all over, and look at shiny new lights, shiny new equipment, but just look at your, person right next to you and say, what are you doing? And just being a community when it comes to car washing. It's a small industry. It's really simple. And, together I think we can all get to a place where we set industry standards across the board and just go from there.
I love it. Friends.
I mean, look at the turnout. This is
all
going to be
here.
much
Yeah.
better than your next panel.
Well, we got you again, so there's that. This has been a fantastic conversation. Jeff, I'm going to ask you to stay here. How about a round of applause for our panelists up here? Thank you so much for this conversation.